Welcome to a place where love isn't just spoken, it's felt, lived, and remembered. Here, hearts break and hearts heal, and every story carries the weight of longing, loss, hope, and rediscovery. Today, a journey begins through the ache of losing someone who once defined every heartbeat, through the quiet moments where hope flickers in unexpected touches and shared glances, and into the transformative power of love that restores passion and teaches that vulnerability is strength. This is a story of intimacy, courage, and unshakable connection, a reminder that even after the deepest loss, love can return in ways more profound than imagined. Every whispered secret, every lingering glance, and every heartbeat shared holds the power to awaken hope and passion in the soul. Sit close, feel every word, and let the journey of longing, closeness, and fearless love begin. The emptiness hit first in the quiet moments when the house was still, and the absence of her presence was impossible to ignore. Even the air seemed heavier, every shadow deeper, every corner sharper. There was no sudden drama, no abrupt announcement, just the subtle, cruel realization that the laughter, the warmth, the gentle brush of her hand across the skin were gone. And with them went the pulse of life itself, the rhythm that had once made everything feel right. The memories refused to remain gentle whispers. They surged in waves, relentless and vivid. The curve of her smile in sunlight, the way her hair fell across her shoulders when she bent to tie a shoe, the sound of her voice humming in the kitchen, all of it returned at the most inconvenient moments, stirring a longing so sharp it became physical. Even the scent of her lingered in forgotten places, faint traces in the sheets, on the pillow, clinging to the chair she once claimed. It was everywhere and nowhere, an intangible presence that made the absence even more painful. Nights were the hardest, sleep offered no refuge, dreams would tempt with the illusion of closeness, only to shatter in the first light of dawn. The pillow carried the imprint of her head in memory alone, and the cold sheets mocked the warmth they had once shared. Even the simplest gestures, like reaching out for a hand that wasn't there, became a haunting reminder of what had been lost. The ache wasn't just emotional. It settled into muscles, lodged in the chest, wrapped around the heart in invisible chains, making every breath feel incomplete. It wasn't the loss of routine alone that wounded. It was the absence of her in the everyday, in the mundane, in the smallest acts that had once carried meaning simply because they were shared. Coffee sipped alone lacked flavor. A favorite book, once read together in quiet afternoons, now seemed hollow. Music played softly in the background reminded of her smile, her hum, the gentle sway of her body in time with the melody. The world itself continued to move forward, unconcerned with the void left behind, and each step through it felt like walking with a weight strapped to the chest. Even in the company of others, the world felt distant. Conversations passed like murmurings underwater, voices muffled and blurred. Laughter sounded hollow, and small joys seemed pale, lacking the color she had always brought. There were moments of temporary distraction, yes, but even these carried the subtle sting of absence. Seeing a familiar gesture, hearing a tone she had loved, feeling a breeze that had once brushed across her skin, all reminded that she had been and that she was gone. Sometimes the memory of her touch came unbidden, a phantom warmth that pressed against the skin, teasing the senses, making the heart ache all the more. The hands that once fit together perfectly, the way her body leaned into every embrace, the gentle rhythm of her breathing at night. These recollections were exquisite in their detail, but cruel in their reality. Each recollection reminded that something irreplaceable had vanished, leaving an emptiness that could not be filled by mere time or distraction. Loneliness became a companion, heavy and inescapable. It settled into the bones, a constant pressure that seemed almost tangible. The mind wandered endlessly, replaying moments of shared intimacy, whispered promises, quiet laughter in the night. Every corner of the home carried traces of her, each object a reminder that she had been there, had loved, had made life rich and vivid. And now she was absent, leaving behind only echoes and shadows. There were small, unanticipated reminders in the world outside as well. A song drifting from a passing car, a breeze carrying a floral scent, a stranger's gesture that mimicked one she had once done. Each jolted the heart, reopened wounds that had yet to heal, and rekindled the longing that never truly ebbed. Even ordinary sights and sounds became carriers of memory, bittersweet and relentless, making each day a journey through both love and loss simultaneously. Yet, even in the depth of this ache, there was a quiet, stubborn clarity. The intensity of longing proved the depth of connection, the power of love that had been real, that had burned brightly, that had left an indelible mark. Every pang of absence carried within it the proof that love had existed fiercely and fully. Pain was the measure of love lived. Grief was the shadow of passion once shared. And while it hurt beyond words, it also affirmed that what had been lost had been extraordinary. Every sigh, every tear, every restless night was a testament to the presence that had shaped life completely. The body remembered, the heart remembered, the mind remembered, and in that remembrance there was both torment and quiet reverence. There was no need to diminish the ache, no reason to pretend it could be ignored. It existed because love had existed, because the connection had been profound, and because the loss was real. And so, through the relentless ache, through nights that seemed endless, and through days that carried echoes of everything that had been, the heart continued to beat. The longing persisted, tender and sharp, a reminder that something precious had been loved and lost. In that very ache there was truth. Even in absence, love leaves its mark. Hope arrived quietly, almost imperceptibly, like sunlight slipping through a crack in a shuttered window. It wasn't heralded by grand gestures or dramatic confessions. It appeared in the subtle things, in moments that might have seemed insignificant to anyone else. A hand brushing against another by accident, a shared smile that lingered a heartbeat too long, a look that held more than words could ever express. These were the sparks that began to warm the cold emptiness left behind. It started in small increments, the kind that don't demand attention but quietly infiltrate the heart. There were moments when a voice, familiar and soft, spoke across a room, and it carried with it a gentle reassurance that presence could still exist without fear, that connection could still be found even after so much had been lost. Eyes met and held, lingering in ways that spoke of understanding, of empathy, of the unspoken acknowledgement that both hearts carried scars but were still capable of feeling. The first touch was cautious, tentative, a brush of fingers that seemed to hesitate before settling into the memory of what had once been. And yet, in that hesitation, there was magic. It was not about physicality alone, but about the electricity that ran through the quiet space between bodies. The way hearts seemed to recognize each other before the mind could catch up. Every small gesture became charged with meaning, every fleeting moment infused with the reminder that love, though battered, could still find its way back. Conversations grew deeper, softer, more confessional. Words that had once been left unsaid now found their place in quiet murmurs, whispers shared in corners of rooms or over the hum of an evening that felt suspended in time. It wasn't about explaining or justifying, but about letting the soul speak. Secrets, fears, small truths that had been locked away in the solitude of grief began to surface, met with understanding rather than judgment. And in that meeting, trust began to rebuild, fragile yet persistent. There was a rhythm that returned slowly, almost imperceptibly, like a tide reclaiming the shoreline after a storm. Laughter returned first, soft and tentative, then growing richer with every shared glance. The comfort of simply being near one another without expectation or pressure became its own form of intimacy. Hands found each other naturally, resting lightly in moments of silence, creating warmth that words could not articulate. Hearts communicated in a language older than speech, a language of recognition, remembrance, and quiet yearning. Even ordinary moments carried a new weight, a new significance. Sitting across from each other at breakfast, sharing a cup of tea, walking side by side without speaking, all of it felt profoundly intimate. The world outside might have seemed mundane, but within those moments, hope was quietly rebuilding, stitched thread by thread into the fabric of daily life. The body remembered the rhythm of closeness, the contours of comfort, the reassurance of another heart so close it could be felt in every breath. It wasn't without fear. Every attempt at closeness carried the shadow of what had been lost, the lingering ache of absence. Yet even in that fear there was courage, a willingness to try again, to reach for something fragile, knowing that the risk was also the possibility of restoration. Every smile that lingered, every hand held a moment longer than necessary, was a rebellion against despair, a quiet declaration that love could endure even after heartbreak. The intimacy that grew was more than physical. It was the intertwining of hearts, the meeting of unspoken understanding, the shared acknowledgement of past pain and present possibility. There was a tenderness in every glance, a vulnerability in every touch, a depth in every conversation that spoke of more than desire. It spoke of trust, safety, and the rediscovery of connection. The closeness became a lifeline, a proof that even in the aftermath of loss, the human heart could find its way back to warmth. There were moments that took the breath away, not for their intensity alone, but for their simplicity. A quiet embrace in a living room dimmed by evening light, fingers lacing together without a word, a shared sigh of relief at simply being near one another. These were the moments where hope truly began to blossom. It was not the kind of hope that demanded certainty, but the kind that quietly settles into the heart, growing stronger in the stillness, unassuming yet undeniable. And so, in the slow unfolding of closeness, in the gentle reclaiming of touch, in the quiet language of shared glances and whispered confessions, the ache of absence began to soften. The heart, once heavy and cautious, allowed itself to feel again, to reach again, to hope again. The fragility of love was no longer frightening. It was proof that what had been lost could, in small and sacred ways, return. Hope is found in the spaces where hearts meet and stay. Love returned quietly at first, like the gentle rise of sunlight across a horizon that had long been shadowed. It wasn't a sudden flood, but a steady, insistent warmth that seeped into the cracks left by grief, softening edges that had grown jagged and cold. The walls that had been built for protection, thick and unyielding, began to crumble under its quiet insistence. There was no rush, no demand for immediacy, just a patient, tender presence that whispered insistently that it was safe to feel again, that it was safe to surrender. The first moments of true reconnection were almost fragile in their intensity. A glance that lingered, a hand that found its way to another, a quiet laugh shared in the stillness of evening. These gestures ignited sparks that had been dormant, sparks that reminded the heart of its capacity to yearn, to ache, and to feel deeply once more. The body remembered what the heart had longed for, the soft rhythm of closeness, the warmth of a familiar embrace, the reassurance of another heartbeat syncing with its own. Desire returned not as a distraction, but as a language of intimacy, a dialogue between souls that had been separated too long. There was a sense of awe in rediscovering what had been lost. Every touch carried significance beyond the physical. Fingers interlaced, palms pressed, and the simplest gestures became affirmations of presence and care. There was a rawness in the connection, a purity that demanded full attention and surrender. The vulnerability that had once seemed terrifying now became the very bridge to intimacy. Walls built from pain and grief were no longer shields, but remnants to be left behind, opening space for closeness that was tender, consuming, and utterly alive. Love did not shy away from grief, it embraced it. It did not erase the ache or the memories of absence, but integrated them into a deeper understanding, a richer connection. Longing that had once felt agonizing now became a testament to resilience, a proof that hearts could survive separation and still choose each other again. There was a sacredness in this process, a quiet acknowledgement that to surrender to love again was not weakness, but courage, the courage to trust, to feel fully, to open the heart despite its scars. Every shared moment became transformative. The way a hand rested against another, a whisper shared in the soft dark of a room, a smile that lingered just long enough to make the chest ache. These moments carried an alchemy that was both subtle and profound. Love restored desire not merely for touch, but for understanding, for companionship, for the invisible threads that connect two souls. Each touch, each glance, each soft word was a reclamation, a reminder that passion had never truly vanished, only slept beneath the weight of grief. There was also a tenderness in witnessing the gradual reclaiming of joy. Laughter returned, richer, fuller, not the forced kind, but the laughter that springs from shared recognition, from comfort, from the quiet delight of being known and chosen again. Conversations deepened, unearthing truths that had lain buried, giving space for honesty, vulnerability, and acceptance. It was not about perfection or erasing the past. It was about honoring it while moving forward, allowing love to transform pain into a force that healed and renewed. The transformative power of this love revealed itself most clearly in its demand for surrender. To feel again, to desire again, to trust again. It required letting go of defenses and allowing the heart to fully open. And with that surrender came a remarkable intensity, a closeness that was both tender and consuming. It was a recognition that intimacy, in its truest form, is not only about physical presence, but about the courage to meet another completely, to hold and be held, to witness and be witnessed. Even the small, ordinary moments became infused with profound significance. A quiet evening together, the brushing of fingers across a table, the way voices softened in the dimming light, all became symbols of the transformation taking place. Love was no longer just a feeling. It had become a force shaping behavior, reshaping priorities, reshaping the heart itself. It healed wounds, ignited passion, and demanded a surrender that was exhilarating and humbling all at once. The return of love also brought clarity. It reminded that grief and longing were not obstacles, but proof of what had been real. Every ache, every tear, every restless night had prepared the heart to embrace love again fully, with awareness, with gratitude, and with the wisdom of experience. There was no need to cling to what had been lost because what had returned was richer, deeper, and more alive. The heart had been tested, and through that trial, it discovered its capacity for renewal, its resilience, and its ability to feel again without fear. And so, with each touch, each whispered word, each shared glance, love transformed the shadows of loss into warmth, passion, and intimacy. It restored desire, not just for closeness, but for the fearless surrender of the heart, teaching that vulnerability is strength and that profound reconnection is possible even after the deepest absence. Love, when it returns, reshapes everything it touches. True love demands surrender, the kind that strips away all pretenses and leaves the heart bare, trembling yet alive. It asks for trust without hesitation, the willingness to open every corner of the soul to another, to allow intimacy to bloom not only in moments of joy, but also in the quiet vulnerabilities that had long been guarded. It is messy, chaotic even, yet in its mess lies a beauty that cannot be found anywhere else. Every heartbeat shared, every whispered word, every brush of fingers carries a weight that is both intoxicating and grounding, reminding that love is alive, present, and fearless. The courage to embrace this love begins in small ways, often unnoticed at first, a hand resting in another's, lingering slightly longer than necessary, eyes meeting in shared understanding, the unspoken acknowledgement of shared longing and past pain. Moments like these are a quiet rebellion against fear, against the tendency to shield the heart, against the instinct to retreat from intimacy after loss. The body remembers, the heart remembers, and the soul knows that closeness is not something to avoid, but something to trust and honor. It is in the laughter that spills freely in unguarded moments, unburdened by expectation or pretense, that love begins to reveal its fearless nature. There is something extraordinary in allowing oneself to be wholly present, to surrender to joy without fear that it will be taken away. In that laughter, walls built from grief start to crumble, and the heart learns again the rhythm of closeness, the delight of touch, the warmth of being fully seen and accepted. Whispered secrets under the quiet cover of night deepen the intimacy in ways that words spoken in daylight never could. The sharing of fears, desires, memories, and hidden corners of the soul becomes a sacred act, a testament to trust earned and returned. Each revelation, no matter how small, becomes a thread weaving two lives together, binding hearts in ways that go beyond mere presence. The vulnerability in these moments is both terrifying and liberating, because it is in surrendering that the heart finds its strength. Every touch carries weight and meaning. A hand pressed against another's cheek, a lingering embrace, a brush of lips that speaks volumes in silence. These are the moments where pain fades, where the memories of absence and longing are held at bay, if only temporarily. Desire in this love is not reckless or careless. It is intentional, tender, and consuming. It demands awareness, presence, and courage, teaching that to give fully is to receive fully, and that in the balance of giving and receiving, hope flourishes. Love in this form is transformative. It does not merely restore what was lost, it elevates it. The heart learns to trust again, to reach again, to open fully without hesitation. Boundaries once erected for protection become bridges for connection, allowing closeness to be both intimate and safe. The passion that had lain dormant beneath the weight of grief awakens, not as an escape, but as a celebration of the depth of feeling that survived the absence. It is a recognition that love, when embraced fully, carries the power to heal, to ignite, and to reaffirm life itself. Even ordinary moments gain extraordinary significance. Sitting together in quiet, sharing a cup of tea, the gentle brush of a hand across the table, the soft curve of a smile in the dimming light. These are the gestures that define fearless love. They are reminders that closeness is not always loud or dramatic. It is often subtle, intimate, and deeply profound. In these moments, surrender does not mean loss. It means discovery. The discovery of joy, desire, and connection that is unshakable. The courage to embrace passion also involves embracing imperfection. Love is not tidy. It is messy, unpredictable, and sometimes frightening. It asks for honesty, for the willingness to show cracks, to expose raw edges, and to trust that these will be met with tenderness rather than judgment. In this surrender, intimacy deepens. Every heartbeat, every sigh, every brush of skin becomes sacred. Every shared glance affirms that love is not merely a feeling, but an act of courage, a deliberate choice to open fully to another. There are nights when the world fades away, leaving only two hearts beating in quiet synchrony. Every whisper, every touch, every shared breath becomes a declaration that fear no longer governs the heart. Desire is no longer separate from love. It is entwined with care, tenderness, and respect. And in these moments, the ache of past absence disappears, replaced by a profound certainty that love has returned in its truest, most fearless form. Through giving fully and receiving fully, through surrender and the courage to trust again, hope is found. The heart learns that vulnerability is strength, and that passion is not something to be tamed, but something to be embraced with courage. In the messy, beautiful, and fearless act of opening completely to another, love becomes unshakable, enduring, and infinite. Love asks for surrender, and in surrender it gives everything. Thank you for joining this journey of love, loss, and rediscovery. If this story touched your heart, left you reflecting on the power of hope, or reminded you of the courage it takes to surrender fully to love, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more real, heartfelt stories that celebrate the beauty, depth, and transformative power of love. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment that could inspire, heal, or awaken the heart. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Your story matters, and your voice is part of this journey. Love is messy, tender, and fearless, and together we honor it in every story. Until next time, hold close what matters, cherish the small moments, and let love guide you through even the hardest nights.